Tonight, NDC minority in parliament accuses government of persecuting their colleague, former housing minister, on trial for financial loss to the state. They are counter-accusing some former members of this current administration.
As I've said, we remain undaunted. I do not think that these charges can stand the test of law. I'm very convinced about it. Selective justice is discriminatory and in breach and affront to Article 17 of the 1992 Constitution.
We tell you how the trial of Collins Dauda has left the NDC itself with internal cracks.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gas and Cement, the nation builder. Is also brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. The minority in parliament is tonight going on the offensive, raising counter-accusations of complicity, insisting government is on a witch hunt against former housing minister Collins Dauda being prosecuted for causing financial loss to the state. Now, Mr. Dauda and 4 others are facing a total of 52 charges over allegedly misapplying public funds meant for the construction of 5,000 housing units at Saglami. Now, today, Mr. Dauda was granted a self-recognizance bail and Accra High Court, presided over by Justice Comfort Tiziame, have also ordered him to deposit his Ghanaian passport with the court registrar. The trial had meanwhile created rifts within the opposition NDC itself. Another former housing minister under the NDC administration, Evans Mensah, appears to have incurred the wrath of leading figures within the party for breaking ranks on the issue and accusing some party officials of lying about the nature of the Saglami housing project. More on that shortly, but first, my colleague Parker Wilson was in court today and joins me with details of how there was this massive show of support by NDC members of parliament. Parker, we are learning the minority leader Haruna Idrisu led a delegation to throw their full weight behind him.
Yeah, that's correct. So himself was there. The chief whip, Muntaka Mubarak, Dominic Ayene was there. Mahama Yaga was also there, including Eric Opoku, who now speaks for Mr. Collins Dauda and Alfred Oko Vanderpoy. So these were some of the members of parliament from the minority side who joined the leader of the minority side to come to court this morning to support Collins.
So
Dauda.
what really happened?
Right. So, in fact, the court or the judge used about an hour because, Evans, you know that these individuals, the 5 accused persons, are facing 52 charges. Now, she spent almost an hour to read the charges to the 5 accused persons. So, if you look at the court document, for example, when a case is stated against you, the judge reads it, calls you and asks you to answer whether you are guilty or not. Then you answer, I am not guilty or I plead not to be guilty. So in all the 5 accused persons pleaded not guilty.
Okay, so Collins Dauda also pleaded not guilty.
Also pleaded not guilty. But he was the first accused person. If you look at the court document, he is the first accused person. The second accused person is his successor. That is Kweku Ajiman Mensah.
I'm curious. We're hearing tonight from the minority alleging that this is a witch hunt and this is frivolous, but they're also casting some doubts and alleging that a former minister under under the NPP administration recently may also be complicit in this matter.
Yes, in fact, we've picked up information that the former minister under the NPP administration, Evans, you recall that Samuel Atachan between 2017 and recently was actually the minister responsible for works and housing under the NPP administration. Now, we are told by the NDC that he paid about $5.6 million to the company responsible for the construction of the affordable housing projects, and the executive chairman of that company actually is also facing a criminal charges. I mean, is against him. So Haruna made the point that these are individuals who have paid some money yet they are not facing any charge. And I was making particular reference to Atachia and his deputies at the time. They are not facing any criminal charges. But however, Collins Dowda, who did no wrong in the execution of his mandate as a Works and Housing Minister at the time, is rather facing some criminal charges. He believes this is clearly persecution, and he says that the case against him will not stand the test of law.
Our very experienced and seasoned MPs, the Honorable Collins Dowda, and 4 others have been charged. Interesting times in Ghana, even when the courts are supposed to be on judicial vacation. And it's instructive that they are being charged when the courts are themselves on vacation. What is the hurry? What is the desperation that he has willfully caused loss of financial loss to the state? Whose value? Whose value? Whose value? I hear an attorney general say the value is $64 million, whether he's an expert or not. I just believe that these are frivolous, trumped-up charges intended to politically persecute and politically harass. As I've said, we remain undaunted. I do not think that these charges can stand the test of law. I'm very convinced about it. And as journalists, you must be interested in probing further. Is it not interesting that they are being charged for financial loss to the state when we have evidence that as at May 2018, 31st, May 2018, some payments were made to the same contractor, yet the persons who made those payments are not being charged. It only can be a matter of selective.
I'm sure you're talking about Atachia. He has denied the claim.
What I have said is, as at May 31st, 2018, total payments to the contractor, May 2018 was not a Collins Dowda era. It was not a John Dramani Mahama presidency era. I'm just saying, as at May 2018, total payments.
Who made this payment?
I wouldn't know. You have to find out. All I'm saying is that selective justice is discriminatory and in breach and affront to Article 17 of the 1992 Constitution. We don't want to believe that this is also another selective justice aimed at political harassment and political intimidation of us. But I do not think that I've listened to the charges. I'm not even aware that ministers generate certificate or IPCs for payment. That's not a ministerial role. I just know that technical consultants do that evaluation, probably for ministers to refer to it. But the matter is before court. But we will not be intimidated.
So I understand in court today, the Attorney General actually did not oppose the bill.
Yeah, in fact, he was actually the one who suggested to the court that, looking at the pedigree of Mr. Collins Dowda, he's a member of parliament, and so he should be granted self-recognizance bail. So he was Attorney General who actually suggested that, and the court granted that. But his suggestion did not come without a condition, that the court should compel Collins Dowda to deposit his Ghanaian passport with the court registrar. Though the lawyer for Collins Dowda, that is Thaddeus Sorry, opposed to that, the argument he made was that Mr. Dowda is a member of the Pan-African Parliament, and periodically he will be going to the Pan-African Parliament to execute his duties as a member of the Parliament. And so restraining or probably taking away his passport might impede his mandate as a member of that Parliament. But the AG then argued and insisted that at least they want to make sure this court process goes on smoothly without any hitches. And so without any control of Mr. Dowda's movement, it might impede the smooth process of this particular proceedings. However, the judge, after listening to them, indicated to the court and, of course, the lawyers of Collins Dowda that, well, I'm going to give you the self-recognizance bill, but however, you have to go to the court registrar and deposit your Ghanaian passport. So we are told that that has been done.
Now, talking about this case, it's had several ramifications for the NDC themselves. They appear to have left a split within the ranks of the party. It started with the National Communications Officer issuing a statement in which he asserted that this project, the Saglami Housing Project, was to be done in phases and not at a goal. Right. The former housing minister, E.T. Mensah, a very prominent founding member of the party who was a housing minister then, had strongly reacted to that, rejecting that assertion by his own communications officer.
Right. So, Evans, you recall that when the AG filed the court document, as part of the charges against Collins Dowda, he stated that he reviewed the work agreement of this particular project. That was when the NDC, National Communications Officer, came to his defense and indicated that it was rather E.T. Mensah who, at the time, when procuring the $200 million for the housing project, indicated to Parliament that they were going to construct the project in 4 phases. So they will do one phase, put together 1,500 housing units. Then when they are done, the proceeds from the sale of that 1,500 will be used to construct another 1,500. So when they are done, then eventually they get the 5,000 housing unit. Quickly, E.T. Mensah came to respond. And in fact, he was very disappointed with some of the comment made by the National Communications Officer, Sami Jemfi. We can listen to E.T. Mensah when he was responding directly to some of the concerns raised by Sami Jemfi.
And he spoke on Metro TV's evening talk show, Good Evening Ghana.
How many phases were you going to complete this in?
5,000 houses, first phase.
One phase, build all the 5,000?
Yeah.
But we are being told that you were going to do it in 4 phases.
It is lie. It's a lie.
It's a lie?
I was not involved in any phases. We knew that we wanted 5,000 houses to be built for workers. Executive approval was given, and then Parliament approved it. So if anything at all, if I wanted to change anything, I'm not a kid. I will have to go through the same process.
Back to Parliament.
Somebody, gave the executive approval. So if it is happening, there was somebody there, so I would have gone to that president who was there and asked for through the
Get another
committee.
executive approval and then go back to Parliament.
Exactly. You cannot go to Parliament and have something approved and then you come home and decide to do what you like. So when you were going through those things, I was just like, what is this? Can people lie this way? And let you have it later. Because
okay, but
they did all that. Sewage, when you go there, all the asphalt that you see over there.
It's all part of the 200 million.
I don't know, 200 million.
So if somebody tells us today that the 200 million excluded sewage and road and a site for the land, a service plot, we should not believe that person.
That person doesn't know what he's talking about. Because we have all the facts, and let me tell you, I'm surprised at what is happening, because when Prof died, and some of us were removed, and new persons went. When you are leaving as a minister, you are leaving an office as a minister, you prepare handing over notes, detailed handing over notes. And I have my copy, and the person that I handed over to was Collins Dowda. He knows it. And he should have a copy as well out there.
So that is E.T. Mensah. But this has angered a few leading figures in the NDC. We've heard from a known aide of the former President John Dramani Mahama, Stan Dogbe, on his Facebook page. What has he been saying?
Well, so Stan Dogbe writes on his Facebook page that upon my review of documents available to me on the matter of the Cyclame Housing Project, which agreements include the EPC and works contracts and all signed by the then Minister for Water Resources, Works and Housing, E.T. Mensah, I can safely conclude and say that if indeed there has been any untoward conduct, loss of funds to the states, or a legally reasonable reason to prosecute anybody in relation to that project, then the person the Attorney General should be prosecuting is Mr. E.T. Mensah, the then minister. Any act that requires prosecution or financial loss for that matter is the result of his actions and decisions and the signing of the agreement. So that is the post put together by Stan
and there
Dogbe.
are others in the party who agree. Felix Kwachi-Fosu, for example, former Deputy Information Minister, also works in the office of the former president.
So he pulled up a parliamentary Hansard where Mr. E.T. Mensah, on the point of order, indicated that, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, this issue about taking $200 million, let us put these things in perspective. This company, as we have said, has been existing for 6 months, and they have entered into an agreement with Ghana Home Loans. Ghana Home Loans technical team has also examined. This is because they would be the off-takers. the houses will be built and they would buy them off. We are not building all the 5,000 at a go, but over a period. So this is the parliamentary hands that Felix Ofosu-Kwakye pulled to back his claim that indeed E.T. Mensah said that the construction of the project was going to be built in phases.
Thankfully, we can bring in the National Communications Officer of the NDC, Mrs. Sami Jamefi, of course, whose statement seemed to have angered E.T. Mensah. He calls the assertions in that statement lies. Mrs. Sami Jamefi, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Thanks for having me, Evans.
I'm pretty sure you would have heard E.T. Mensah on the matter. He says the assertions are lies. Were they lies?
Not at all. I think as we speak, everybody who has listened to me or Ikusi saying on Asempa FM, on Metro TV this morning, is convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that the information I put out were nothing but factual information. I don't begrudge Honorable E.T. Mensah. He left the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing years ago. And so maybe some of these things have escaped him. And I will encourage him to refresh his memory by going through the records. And he would agree with us that everything we have said on this matter is factual. First of all, as Parker just read, when the loan facility agreement was laid before Parliament for approval in line with Article 181, the Honourable Minister for Water Resources, Works and Housing at the time, Honourable E.T. Mensah, told Parliament that not all the 5,000 housing units were going to be constructed at a go, but over a period. Now, on the 4th of January 2013, he executed a works agreement, what is called the EPC agreement, in which he indicated that the project will be constructed in 4 phases. It is there, black and white, 5th paragraph of that agreement. And in fact, if you check the 4th agreement, the 4th paragraph of the agreement says that the proceeds from the first phase, after the off-taker pays for it, the proceeds will be deposited into an escrow management account, which will be used to finance future phases. And so clearly, the decision to phase out the project, the decision to use the proceeds of phase 1 to finance phase 2 in that revolving manner was taken, or if you like, was captured in the EPC agreement, which was signed by Honorable E.T. Mensah. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, because he had already indicated to Parliament that that was how the agreement was going to be implemented. Even aside that, you look at the same paragraph 5 of the agreement, you realize that he said that the first phase will be constructed. The total land size for the entire project, the entire 5,000 houses, was 2,172 acres. But he indicated that phase 1 was going to be constructed on 500 acres, meaning that he was not going to build all the 5,000 units at a go, but he was going to build some on 500 acres and build the subsequent phases on the remaining 1,500 acres, and so on. And there is good reason why he could not and did not indicate the number of housing units that were going to be built at that stage. And that reason is that at that stage, 4th January 2013, when the EPC agreement was being executed, the architectural designs for the project had not been done. It was pursuant to the EPC agreement that the contractor was tasked to develop architectural designs for the project subject to the approval of the government of Ghana. And so it was under Honorable Collins Zelda, specifically 4th April 2014, that the drawings were done and construction began on 17th May 2014. People have said that Parliament indicated clearly that the approved loan amount of $200 million should have been used for 5,000 houses. That is 100% factual. But what they forget to take into account, or what they refuse to take into account, is what is captured at column 437 of the parliamentary handbook, where Parliament indicates clearly that 438 rather indicates clearly that the $200 million for 5,000 housing units, number one, is based on indicative price. An indicative price is just a preliminary estimate which is used for an analysis. It is not the actual price. What it means is that during implementation, the price can change. Secondly, at that same place, you realize that Parliament said they should use $200 million for 5,000 housing units, excluding the cost of infrastructure. The cost of infrastructure. And here we are talking about ancillary and auxiliary facilities such as roads, such as sewage, such as drains, recreational facilities, water, electricity, and which the EPC agreement said government should, provide for the smooth execution of the project, to make the project commercially viable, and to make the community habitable upon completion, because we could not have built 5,000 houses in the bush without asphalt roads, without drains, sewage, and all these other facilities. But that amount was a simplistic calculation Parliament had done based on indicative prices, excluding this. And so if we were going to include or incorporate the cost of this infrastructure, then clearly we're going to need more than $200 million before we could do 5,000 housing units, plus roads, plus sewage, plus drains, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, my curiosity.
It was Honorable E.T. Mensah in the EPC agreement of 4th January 2013, who at paragraph 5 of the agreement incorporated the cost of this infrastructure into the project. He incorporated it because it was not part of the original idea. He incorporated it because the cost was excluded from the $200 million. And so once we were going to include the cost of these infrastructure, which, by the way, has been delivered. Today, if you go to the site, asphalt roads have been done for phase 1 and phase 2. Drains have been done for phase 1 and phase 2. Sewage, the same thing, and all that. Once he incorporated that, it meant that we could not build all the 5,000 housing units at a go. We could build the 5,000 housing units. But we could not build all that at a go.
Here's my curiosity.
But we could only build that in phases. And so, there was absolutely nothing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you are
that arrangement.
You are the communications officer of the party. E.T. Mensah is a founding member. I mean, this is the same party. Why wasn't there an alignment on this?
Oh, like I said, E.T. Mensah is a very venerable politician. He doesn't consult some agency before he speaks. Okay, and like he himself conceded in the interview, it's been a long time since he left the ministry. As he was speaking, he didn't even have any documents before him. And so when he was asked certain questions, he told the host that, look, I'm not a technical person. I will have to get the necessary documents before I can answer certain things.
So clearly, the word like lie,
let's
it's very
give him the benefit of the doubt that if he had gone through the documents and had refreshed his memory, I'm very sure that his answers would have been different.
Yeah,
so,
but on this very question, he was so emphatic, Sammy, about, and used the word "these are lies" and says, "How could people lie like this?" He was so unequivocal about that.
Well, the fact that somebody says you have lied doesn't mean you have lied. Saying so proves nothing until evidence is adduced to buttress that claim. And clearly, you've watched the interview. No such evidence was adduced. We have rather shown you the EPC agreement. We've shown you the parliamentary answer that captures what transpired on the floor of Parliament on the 31st October 2012, which confirms or corroborates everything we have said. We've shown you reports generated by the Ministry of Works and Housing in 2018, which confirms all this. Let me make a point that when, a very important point, that when the decision was taken by the Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing under Honorable E.T. Mensah for the infrastructure cost, which had originally been excluded, to be incorporated, and when a decision was taken to phase out the project, Parliament was not kept in the dark like some have suggested. Parliament was carried along. If you check the reports are produced by the ministry in 2018, February 2018 on this project, it says that on the 23rd of May 2014, 1 week after construction had begun, 1 week, and after the designs had been done and we had agreed that we'll do the project in phases, and that phase 1 will be 1,506 units and the proceeds will be used for the subsequent phases. A presentation was made by the contractor to the Parliamentary Committee on Water Resources and Housing and the Parliamentary Committee on Finance. Detailed presentations of all these facts were made to them, and the two committees actually visited the sites. So Parliament was not kept in the dark. Parliament was carried along. And in fact, if you check paragraph 529 of the 2018 budget statement presented by this government, that's Honorable Kenuforiata, which was approved by Parliament. Again, Parliament was informed that the job was being done in phases, and that phase 1 was 1,500.
Let me ask you very finally. Do you agree with Stan Dugbe, for example, that if anybody is to be prosecuted, it is E.T. Mensah?
The operative word there, which we need to emphasize, is if. Because we maintain, and any objective person who goes through the documents, the documentation on this project will realize that there is no evidence of criminality unless that evidence exists, but we have not been presented with it. And so we maintained that Honorable E.T. Mensah did a fantastic job, same as Honorable Collins Dauda. Whatever they did was well intended. It was in the national interest. They didn't breach any laws and so on. But what my brother Sandoge is saying is that assuming without admitting that what the MPP would have us believe is true, what Honorable E.T. Mensah would have us believe is true, that what Parliament had approved had been varied without recourse to Parliament, and that amounts to a crime, which we disagree with. But assuming without admitting that that is true, then the one who should be blamed for that clearly is Honorable E.T. Mensah, because he was the one who decided to implement the agreement in phases and to incorporate the cost of infrastructure, which was not part of the original plan or which had been approved by Parliament.
Well, Mr. James, I'm grateful that you joined me on this. This, of course, has just started the trial. As you heard, Collins Dauda himself has been granted a self-recognizance bail. It's something that we are watching very closely as it unfolds. Grateful, Mr. James. You want to join us with your thoughts on this? 055-111-997. News